I'd like to introduce David from the United States. Welcome, David.
Good day. I'm glad to be with you.
Thank you. And can you tell us for what condition you take LDN?
I have ulcerative colitis, and I've found, incidentally, I'll mention probably later that I've also had depression for a good long time, but the primary diagnosis that led me to LDN was colitis.
Hmm. And when did you start to notice the symptoms of your colitis?
Well, I was first diagnosed in 2006, and that was the first flare up. I was 66 at that time, and all of a sudden I was bleeding, and my assumption was that I've got cancer and I'm going to die.
Yeah.
I'd never experienced anything like that, and eventually, of course, was diagnosed with ulcerative colitis, and actually the gastroenterologist that I dealt with, communication was not her strong suit, and so she gave me a prescription, and it was, and I was to go home, and these were enemas, and what I was supposed to do, believe it or not, was I was supposed to fill my colon with fluid, go to bed, sleep soundly, keeping my sphincters locked down, I guess, in a dream state. I don't know how you do that. And then get up and get rid of it all in the morning. And I wondered if she thought I slept in a rubber room, or, it was just ridiculous. So eventually she prescribed some suppositories that worked. They were Canassa suppositories, and so that first episode lasted several months. I would say about 8 months, and then went away. And I thought, well, that's the end of that, and I'm glad that. I'm not glad I had the experience, but I'm certainly glad it's over with. And of course, it wasn't. I wasn't over with it by any means.
Mm-hmm.
And then I got another flare-up, and this one is been going for about a year now. And it was in January of this year that I first found out about Low Dose Naltrexone. I'm probably getting way ahead of where you want me to be here.
No, that's fine. You carry on.
Well, it was, I was, unlike the first time, which, as frightening as it was to me, turned out to be fairly mild. And the second time around, I became essentially a prisoner in my house. I was I had to go to the bathroom every 2 hours or so, with great urgency. I dared not be more than a few steps away from my bathroom. And of course, my life, as I've been leading it, just came to a total halt. I had been doing a research project in the library, and I couldn't even take the time to get to the library, let alone to work there. So
Mm-hmm.
it really impacted my life, and of course there was tremendous loss of blood, and so I was a sick guy.
Okay, so how did you go about obtaining a prescription for LDN?
Well, I heard about it in February from a friend of mine who, January, from a friend of mine who has Crohn's disease, which is very similar to ulcerative colitis. My condition is rather less serious than Crohn's disease. But anyway, she was about to have surgery and have a significant portion of her colon removed, which is what I was living in fear of. And but she had just found out. She said, "Look up. It's called LDN, so I did, and of course, it changed everything. I began to find out about low dose naltrexone and how it works, its magic, and what's different about the naltrexone they use to the high doses they use to treat drug addiction and alcoholism versus what we do. And so as the research continued, I then mentioned to my gastroenterologist, I tried to via the telephone, and I couldn't even get her to talk to me about it. She simply conveyed a message through a nurse to me that A, I have heard about LDN, and B, I will not prescribe it. So I went to my primary care physician and asked him. He was at least willing to discuss it, but looked into it and came back to me with what in the United States we hear a great deal that this is an off-label use. This is going to expose me to all sorts of liability. It's true, it's an off-label use, but frankly, it doesn't expose them to the liability that I'd like you to think. So anyway, I did get my low-dose naltrexone from All Day Chemist in India, and they don't, the companies in India don't require a prescription, so I got the same stuff that I would have gotten otherwise, and then had my first dose on March 16th of this year.
Did you notice any initial side effects when you started?
No, I'm pleased to say, and I've been, I go to the low dose naltrexone website and the Yahoo board and see all of the stories that people tell about, sleeplessness and all kinds of war stories about side effects. I just had none. I started at 3 milligrams at 10 o'clock at night, and within a week I bumped it up to 4.5, and I've had no negative side effects, no dreaming. I was sort of hoping for some vivid dreams of some of the starlets in movies that I've seen, but alas, it was not to be. And so I sleep soundly, and to my knowledge, I have no side effects.
So what did you notice?
Well, it was dramatic. Once I knew that I was going to use it, I started to take careful notes of, the frequency of bathroom visits and, so that I would have a basis for comparison. And somewhat earlier than that, I'd started on the select carbohydrate diet, and that was helpful. It took me from about 2 hours between bathroom visits to around 3 hours between bathroom visits, but it stopped the progression of the disease, and the urgency was not quite so bad. But I was still a prisoner in the house, and so I kept very careful records of all of this activity. And then I took the first dose on March 16th, and then I plotted this data. And what you see, it's amazing, is as soon as on the day after that I started to take it, you can see the curve begin to increase, showing an increasing number of average hours between bathroom visits. So that started just immediately upon the first doses, and by the end of April, so it was about 6 weeks into the LDN, I was 9 hours between bathroom visits, and in short, had my life back.
Well, that's amazing.
Yeah. It's and if you look at the chart, I wish I could show it to you. It's very dramatic. You just see this all this data floating along at 2 and 3 hours between visits, and then all of a sudden it just starts to arch up and continues to climb until it levels off around just a little over 9 hours on average between visits, and which is normal. And so, you know, again, I had my life back, and I was not to remission, and I'm still not. But you know, there's still a little bit of blood loss, and if I play games with my diet, I'm going to have some flare-ups. But you know, if I'm reasonably compliant with my diet, and you know, I'm just steadily getting better.
Hmm. What does your doctor think to your improvements?
Well, I'll never see the gastroenterologist again, but my primary care physician, you know, he's he's a nice guy, but he's totally risk averse. He's he's absolutely will not consider the himself prescribing the stuff. Although he likes to hear that I'm getting better.
Hmm.
But you know what this taught me is that I'm the only person who can be responsible for my health. I'm the only guy. These other people are important resources. I respect their learning and all the rest of it. But ultimately, their recommendations don't mean anything until I say they do. And because I'm the guy who has to live with the consequences.
Hmm.
Um, and so he, he's, you know, he's pleased that I'm getting better, but he's unshakable in his resistance to write prescriptions.
So he's happy you getting it as long as you get it from someone else.
Oh, absolutely. And you know, I'm taking at 4.5 milligrams at bedtime daily. The cost of this medication is a little less than $7 per month. Now that's just astonishing to me, compared to the drugs that if I would have followed the standard treatment protocol, you know, there was prednisone waiting for me,